Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is Kushalmehra. All right, time to cover MMA again. And today we're going to talk about UFC 312. We recently had the pay per view finish where we had some good fights, some average fights. So maybe we'll start with this. We'll start with the fight that all of us Indians were interested in between Quillian Salatkil, I don't know how to pronounce his second name, and Anshul Jubli. Anshul is obviously from Bharat, from India. So the fight finished way too early. I think it was the 19th second in round one by knockout. So as always, I have Varun to talk about this with me. So Varun, what did you make of the fight?
I mean, what I made of it was that I got up at 7:30 in the morning, turned on the fight, and it was done. And then I went right. I was just so sad. I was heartbroken. I couldn't believe what I'd seen. I honestly thought I was like having a nightmare because I was so excited for this fight. I cannot tell you, like, I have a personal relationship with Anshul, and he sounded so confident leading up to it. I met him before. He was training hard. He honestly looked in great shape. Shit happens. Shit happens. I do think that it was a bit of an early stoppage, but you know what? Like everyone's going like, oh, early stoppage. The ref, he was biased towards the Australian. Look, the ref has this like a split second to make a choice on whether to stop the fight. His job is to protect the fighter, right? The visual was Anshul got clipped by a hard shot that echoed around the arena. His head hits the canvas. In that split second, what the referee is seeing is this guy is about to get hurt even more. He has to step in and stop it, or at least I can see why he would step in and stop it.
So I want to ask you this question. Think, taking Anshul and Indian MMA as an example, let's spend some time. Where do you think Indian MMA is right now? Listen, I was proud of the fact that Anshul made it to the UFC. Before that, we had one or two cases of Indian fighters in the UFC. I forgot the name of the girl from Haryana.
Pooja
I think
Tomar.
she was there. Yeah, Tomar. And then there was this boy from Maharashtra, I think, right?
Bharat Kandari.
Yeah, he had also tried to make it to the UFC. So I think Anshul was the third one, but I think Anshul was the one who's gotten the maximum number of fights in the UFC. Uh, what do you make? So the question is like this: training facilities, number one. Where are we from a training facilities perspective?
Yeah,
Number two, overall coaching standard. Number
yeah,
three, mental coaching, because fighting is a lot. Sport is also mental, right? A lot of the mental fitness to talk. Like people don't realize, like when even with you and I, like, why I don't know anything about fighting, but why do I talk to you all the time? I talk to you all the time is because you just need someone to talk about these things, and people don't realize the value of these things. So where do you think these things are in Indian MMA right now?
Okay, so before I sort of dive into that, maybe I'll just give the viewers a bit of a background, just a quick one, just to let them know the differences between where I've trained, where I've fought, and the difference between that and in India. So I've trained in the UK for many years. I've had 13 amateur fights in India, UK, Albania, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all over. And I've also fought in the interclub. So in total, I've had about 20 plus fights now around the world. Okay, I've trained in Singapore as well, where I currently am. So the biggest difference that I see in India compared to the rest of the world and the places I've trained is firstly, obviously, the training facilities. You know, secondly, is that MMA is still not treated as a sport on its own. So we have, obviously we have wrestling, we have boxing, kickboxing, and all of that. But if you saw the lead up to this fight, if you saw the lead up to this card rather, Zhang Weili versus Suarez, Suarez kept talking about how she has superior wrestling, right? And Weili put it best. She said, "This is MMA. This is not wrestling." And until we have coaches that coach just MMA rather than just coaching the individual disciplines, we are going to be far behind, and athletes are going to have to go overseas like Anshul does, and train overseas. So right now we do have some coaches like Anshul Sid, we have Ashwin Moon, Mo Chavs, these guys that have had the privilege of going overseas, being exposed to MMA as a sport, purely as a sport. That knowledge is being brought back slowly, but we still have uh, some way to go in that regard. And in terms of where our fighters are, again in the amateur scene, you are seeing more wins in overseas competition. In the professional scene, we are seeing people go to NISA. We're fighting in Brave, ONE FC. We're getting wins, and for whatever it's worth, we do have some wins in the UFC. But to get to that championship level, uh, yeah, again, first we have to train MMA as a sport. In terms of the mental aspect, it's just such an uphill battle. It's such an uphill battle. I think before the fight, the amount of mountains you have to climb with regards to the federations, the officials, the amount of corruption that goes on. A lot of athletes. I mean, let's be real here, okay? It's athletes are having to pay out of their own pockets to just simply compete. Okay, in India, if you want to compete in a national tournament or a state tournament, sometimes you're paying fees of 5,000 rupees just to take part. Okay, and this is maybe once or twice a year. If you go to the stands like Central Asia, UK, there are shows pretty much every weekend. There are opportunities to fight every single weekend. So until we have an ecosystem like that, and I'm not even talking about amateur fights or professional fights, I'm even saying just at the simple inter-club level. Until we have an ecosystem around MMA like that, yeah, we're not going to produce uh, champion level fighters at a large scale. So that's one. The sort of second thing I'd say is getting funding from and getting sort of support from sponsors, because like I said, these it's expensive to enroll yourself into these tournaments, to go outside, because right now, like I said, the coaching and infrastructure is still not there. So you do have to go overseas and train. Anshul goes overseas. And this is not just true for MMA, this is true for javelin, for example. Neeraj Chopra trains mostly overseas. However, he gets sponsored. A lot of our athletes, because MMA is still viewed as, it's a brutal, violent sport, it's still viewed as, kind of non-sponsor friendly, if that makes sense. The one argument that I would make is that we're a country that celebrates our military strength. Okay, and every year on National Day, we proudly show our strength to the world. So violence is no reason not to, or like the violent nature of anything is no reason to shy away. So I think it's about time that people, and I'm not even, and this is not just for corporates, this is for people as well. The private sponsors, even a good 20,000-30,000 rupees goes a long way for fighters. So yeah, it's about, if we want top level fighters as a collective, we need to come together, promote them, show up for events, and and honestly financially support other fighters.
But see, I have never understood that the sport is too violent, but so we should ban bouncers in cricket.
Yeah, that's the exact that's the exact thing that I've
One of the
always.
most exciting bits of cricket is a fast bowler bowling a bouncer and hitting a batsman in the ribs, and the batsman showing courage and taking it. And it's almost a gladiatorial contest. Like I'll give you an example: an Australia versus a New Zealand Test match where you know. Who was that left arm bowler who used to Neil Wagner used to bowl the short ball length all the time, and at that time there was an Aussie batsman. He's a T20 wicketkeeper. I've just completely blanked out on his name, and he just kept on taking it on his rib cage, kept on taking it on his rib cage. and like I think the violent bit angle, I just don't understand. What I think what happens with MMA is, right, there's more blood involved. uh I think that's it. Like in boxing, we don't have a lot of blood. For some odd reason, we don't have a lot of blood spilled in boxing. In MMA, the kind of smaller gloves, it
Yeah, the
leads
cuts,
to a larger impact. The
elbows.
cuts and everything, the elbow hits, and all of that. I think it leads to more bleeding, and bleeding leads to Matthew Wade. Yes, Matthew Wade was the batsman, the left-hander, and he just
Yeah,
kept on
yeah, of
taking
course.
it, man. Boom, 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 all over. Or for that matter, Jimmy Amarnath, Mohinder Amarnath getting beat up by the West Indian fast bowlers in the 80s, like all over his
Pujara,
body.
Pujara, that series where we went
Pujara,
one down under, where you just
yeah, in the
feeding.
Gabba Test match. In the
Yeah,
Gabba Test match on the last day, Pujara kept on getting hit, kept on getting hit. So that's the point. Like, what are we talking about? Like, and then it's so true. Like the armed forces indulge in it, while wrestling is also equally. It's a contact sport.
it's a
Wrestling. You
brutal
think
sport. It's
wrestlers don't
brutal
get
sport.
hurt? Yeah,
We celebrate,
wrestlers don't get
you
hurt.
know, we celebrate all of this, and it's not like we don't have martial culture in our country.
Yeah, we have a great
We have
martial
a history
tradition
of
in our
it.
country.
So it's yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me when I hear people, oh, it's too violent, da da da, don't do this, don't do that, and then they don't want to uh, help out fighters, and then yeah, like you said, they'll just put all their money towards cricket.
Yeah, it's just I find it very sad. But listen, it's obviously sad that Anshul lost. I
Yeah,
wish the guy the best. I wish him all but success. He should be succeeding. But I genuinely believe with MMA, we just have a facilities issue right now in India. You can go all the way back to 50s, 60s, all the lessons we've learned from cricket, right?
yeah,
Then it was only Mumbai and a few major cities until the explosion of cricket after 2000, after Sachin Tendulkar and real money being brought into the sport. Then India finally, succeeding a little bit. And then, finally Dhoni and many others from smaller towns coming in. The Ganguly era, honestly, is where, you know, small town kids would come. Otherwise, like Mohammad Kaif, right? He's from Allahabad. How many players from Allahabad used to play at that time?
yeah,
It was just Mumbai used to dominate Indian cricket, then Karnataka used to dominate Indian cricket, and that to Bengaluru and in and around that area. Delhi had a few players and one or two Chennai players. But the point is, the sport really became great in India is when coaching facilities and scouting facilities and the IPL, man, the IPL money coming in.
of
Like,
course,
I'm not saying this because Mumbai is my team or I support the Mumbai Indians or anything, but you should actually look at the scouting program of the Mumbai Indians. It is something there should be hours and hours of content on how IPL scouting now works in India. Hours of content. IPL teams now hire scouts. So give you an example. Mumbai Indians have the best training facilities. So every time you have this training session, right, the balls are very expensive in cricket. People
yeah,
think the balls are very cheap. This cricket ball is very expensive. The Mumbai Indians has a stadium. Apna, I think they hire DY Patil in Navi Mumbai. That's where most of the training happens for the Mumbai Indians people. Like if
right,
you want to train in off season, right, and you are a contracted Mumbai Indians player of Indian origin or any origin for that matter, and you are in India at that time, you can come to Mumbai. They actually give you the entire facilities. Yeah,
yeah,
imagine how does and see Mumbai Indians with all Mumbai players are playing.
yeah,
How many non-Mumbai players are playing in Mumbai Indians? Like even someone like Dinesh Karthik said that he explained how Mumbai Indians used to do that in the 2012-13 period, and he was like how it helped him. So these things have to be encouraged, and I think we have a training facility crisis. We just don't have these facilities until some crazy Indian billionaire or multimillionaire just says, okay, take this money, build me 15, 20 good fighters like Haryana, and I think they should have those facilities in Haryana because that's where we have the most number of wrestlers in India. And I
that's
think
right.
now in MMA, you just cannot have anything done without wrestlers being a part of it.
Yeah,
I mean, I know you are a wrestler come striker, right? You grapple, you're a grappler.
yeah,
In your fighting style is also grappling heavy, and I think in India we should have had a natural advantage, but unfortunately it's very sad and it breaks my heart. But I wish Anshul the best. Now in the prelims, other than that, which fight did stood up for you? Which one did you like a lot?
I mean, so okay. Honestly, the next fight, the fight after that, forget the guy's name.
Jonathan versus Kevin, right?
It was the French guy, Juice. French guy
Yeah,
versus I think the other guy. That was
yeah.
the reason I liked that fight was because I think a lot of people when they watch MMA, they just watch a fight. They just see like people punching and kicking, but they don't actually see the game planning, the strategy that goes behind it. So just remind me of Juice's opponent's name again. I forget his name.
Jonathan McAuliffe.
McAuliffe, yes. If you saw that fight, the way he implemented his game plan was perfect. He ate Juice's body with those body kicks. Okay, it was disgusting. Like if you see at the end of the second round, Juice's body was completely bruised up and beaten up. He just kept nailing those body kicks. Now, where the strategy of MMA comes in is when, or it just martial arts in general, is after beating that body up. Naturally, what is Juice going to do? He's going to, put more emphasis on blocking the body. He starts going high and he starts landing the kicks high. And I don't know, I just thought that was something so beautiful to watch, because a lot of times we like the next fight, for example, it was just a slugfest. But when you see someone have a game plan, go out, execute it, and actually, follow strategy, I think that's where the sport of MMA and martial arts is just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it's to me it's like a chess match.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
yeah, but honestly, for me, I think I was not really impressed by any this time any prelim or early prelim fight. Like it was okay. Uh, I think the Wang Kong Bruna Prasil fight in the prelim was time pass. I mean, for me that was okay. But now let's come to the main card. Let's start with the main event: Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Did you give Sean any round?
No, I actually had a 50-45. I thought
Fourth?
that no, I think that like the thing is he did enough the first two rounds were very close. I thought they were very, very close. Uh, but Dricus just did more. He won even the close rounds. He would just edge it every single time with more activity, and he would land the more impactful strikes. So for me, I think, yeah, it was 50-45 across the board. Sean Strickland just never got going. It was strange to watch. I don't know whether, the staph infection that he clearly had on his shoulder played a part in him pushing the pace. But from the get go, like, he just didn't look like, he was going to push the action.
Uh, do you think it was a staph infection? But I mean, if you look at his style of fighting, right? I mean, isn't it
Yeah,
always the same?
it is. But then I see, for example, he gets a lot of criticism for the teep kick, jab and teep kick, right? Like that.
Hmm.
That's what people are like. Oh, he just that jabs and teep kicks. Yeah, he did. How many teep kicks did he throw this time? People. I mean, as much as you want to, as much as people want to discredit Sean Strickland and his fight style, those teep kicks hurt. That will wear on not only just your body, but and in terms of pain, but it will tire a man out very, very quickly. You take about 5, 6 of those, you are breathing heavy very quickly. In the initial rounds, he was throwing it, and he did actually find success. He did land a couple of them on Dricus, but yeah, I think he just stopped throwing it after a certain point. Maybe it was the maybe it's the criticism or it was just the pace. I'm not sure. But he,
Mm.
he didn't look like the Sean Strickland you usually see.
My problem is he can grapple, he refuses to grapple. He can. Everybody
Yeah,
who's trained with him says he can grapple.
yeah,
Uh, so it bothers me. Like it's see, eventually what happens is right when you have the second fight. See, people
yeah,
should remember this is DDP versus Sean Strickland 2.
correct.
Now both of them know each other's style, and
Yeah,
notice how Dricus Du Plessis barely grappled with Sean Strickland this time. He barely grappled with him. Now, if I was Sean Strickland and he's not grappling, I would have grappled and taken him down. I should have tried that. But there
I
was
think,
basically no variation from Sean Strickland's side.
yeah, I think he did. sort of tried towards the end, but by then it was too late. And also, like, yeah, you're right. He didn't evolve. I think Demetrius Johnson even spoke about this. He said that if you look at Sean Strickland's last 4 years, he's not evolved, and if he continues like this, the next 4 years, he'll fight the same way. So he needs to evolve as a fighter. Dricus has clearly evolved since their last fight. And in fact, on the topic of takedowns, I think that's a big part to play. The first fight, if you see, Dricus actually edged some of the rounds because he pushed the pace with the wrestling. He got Sean down a couple of times. And one attack that people forget is not the wrestling, but the threat of the wrestling, right? So did that play a part in Sean Strickland's mind in terms of pressing forward? Perhaps. I would think so, because Dricus, first of all, likes to throw wild overhands, but then while throwing those wild overhands, he's staying low and he can get in on those hips. So yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know. I think it would have been interesting to see Strickland change things up, but the guy that evolved ultimately won the fight.
Okay, so this is a viewer. Feels bad dunking on an Indian and someone you know personally, but Jubilee's previous fight versus Breeden really disappointed me. He was ahead, but the second Mike turned it up towards the end, he seemed surprised and wilted. Honestly, I don't disagree. That's something I told you offline too. When I was like, what's wrong? Like, the moment somebody like goes hard at Anshul, I think Anshul goes too defensive. I don't. It's either he doesn't expect it. I don't know what's happening. Uh, it's the nerves. I don't know. Something is off with Anshul because I know he's a better fighter than that.
So this is something I actually spoke to some people in India about, people that have either trained with Anshul, fought the guy, or coached against him. And the one thing that everyone said is that he's just never had that done to him. No one in India has ever done that to him. So whether it's his training partners or in fights, so suddenly, he's gone 2 rounds where he's piecing this guy up, and honestly, he was piecing him up. He's landing some hard shots, and some other people might have even folded. Suddenly, after doing all of that, you got this guy who's just marching forward, barking at you, putting the pressure on, swinging like a maniac. You're not used to it. You're not used to it. And again, you have to remember that, like, I don't know how, like, again, he's not really had many amateur fights. I don't think he had all that many where people are going to be doing that to him, where people were doing that to him. So I think that had a huge part to play in it. It's just that in that situation, he was like a fish out of water.
Yeah, it's just sad. All right,
And sorry,
co-main event. Go ahead.
just
Go
to go
ahead.
back to that this is why having a strong amateur and interclub scene and sort of ecosystem is
Value of
important.
training partners, Varun. Training
And value
partners.
of training partners. See, there's a lot of training partners in India. In any gym you go to, in any pro amateur session, there are many, but it's quality. It's not the quantity, it's the quality that makes a difference. And see, I've had the privilege again of training and fighting overseas. I've had 13 amateur fights in the last 2 years. Okay, and this is not just in India. I've fought in the nationals and state in India. I've fought in Cage Warriors in the UK, IMMAF tournament. Not everyone has access to these sorts of things. But if you see the guys in the IMMAFs, for example, who are fighting from Kazakhstan or like Tajikistan, Dagestan, whatever, they're fighting so often. They're getting that wealth of experience. So by the time they go pro, right, it's nothing phases them. So, for example, I cannot imagine a Tajik folding under Mike Breeden's pressure, if that makes sense, because he would have seen it at some point in his amateur career. He would have seen it. Maybe he got knocked out. Maybe he's been knocked out in a situation like that, but he's been there and done that, whether it's in the training room or in a fight.
Hmm. What did you make of the co-main event? I really enjoyed the fight. I was shocked that
Outstanding.
Tatiana Suarez lost. I honestly do not
Really?
expect her to lose. Yeah,
You
man.
thought she was going to win?
Yeah, man. I never thought Zhang Wei Li was that good.
That's true. That's true. I did. Okay. Everyone knows she's good, but not that good. I thought if she was going to win, she'd get a knockout and she'd
That was
land a hard.
clinical. She out grappled Tatiana in the last few rounds.
She
Dude,
took her down.
yeah. Like I
No,
was
no,
like,
that was
eh, what am I watching? Is this real?
nah. It was beautiful. That like that, but that exactly goes back to the point. MMA. That's MMA grappling. There's a difference. Suarez, like she kept saying, "I'm a wrestler. World medalist." Da da da. It doesn't matter. Once you get punched a few times in the head, you're worried about this. Suddenly, you're not thinking about getting taken down, and Whaley knew that. Whaley exploited it. And the second thing is the cage. How many takedowns did Whaley stuff on the cage? Some
Yeah.
people use it. Some wrestlers use it to their advantage in terms of offense. But if you're good on the cage, that cage can really help in terms of defending the takedown. And Whaley did exactly that. So yeah, it just everywhere, standing on the ground. When it comes to initiating the takedowns, just a clinical performance. Honestly, her best. I think that was her best performance today.
Do you think Tatiana Suarez's striking game would have been so inefficient? I think her striking game was exposed more than her grappling. I think her striking, because see, if she would have thrown a strike and then mixed it with the takedown, like you
Yeah.
should throw a strike and then you go and do a takedown, right? What she was doing is she's just always constantly trying for the takedown, and that's what was happening. And then eventually, Zhang Wei Li just figured it out. The patterns were fixed.
So I think that comes with I think that comes with a lack of confidence in her striking rather than like I'm sure if you're in the UFC you have to have some level of striking, but as soon as suddenly she got cracked a few times and then she got cracked hard a few times on the feet, she began to panic wrestle. She's just like, okay, I cannot stand with this girl because I'm going to get knocked out. My only way of winning is to take this girl down and to submit her. So if you look at Whaley, however, she's like, I'm happy to win standing. I'll take you down. Hell, I might even submit you. So that's the difference. So I think that also comes with the difference in experience. Whaley has been in so many title fights. I think her record was like 25-3 going in, whereas Suarez was 11-0. It's yeah, you could see the difference in experience there as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you which my favorite fight of the entire card was. Jimmy Crute, Rodolfo Bellato. What a fight.
That awesome
Woo!
fight. Awesome fight.
What a fight. Oh my god. I watched that fight twice or thrice now. Thrice. It was that good. I love that fight.
It was
Dude,
so
that first
fun.
round, Jimmy Crute was on fire.
He looked like a world champion there. He's like
Oh
piecing him off.
man, what a fight. What a fight. I just loved that fight. It was full on Paisa Vasool. That entire card for me, Paisa Vasool ho gaya just because of Jimmy Crute.
No, he's awesome. This is his second draw in 3 fights. This is the second draw. I remember I remember when I was looking at this card, the reason like when I was kind of like, convincing my friends to watch it with me, I was like, dude, trust me, this guy is going to have a fun fight. And I remember he also had like a really fun fight with Anthony Smith back in the day. So I'm like, dude, this guy brings it. He's here to fight.
It was just too good. But did you agree with the draw?
Yeah, I did. Because I did think the first round was 10-8.
Yeah.
And sorry, just to go back to Anshul's fight, you know how in the end of the first round, Crute tags him. He nearly finishes the fight. I don't know. I think like Anshul should have been given the same opportunity in that regard. Because
Fair enough.
what's the guy's name? Sorry, I'm blanking out on names today. But what was his
You
opponent's
mean
name?
Rodolfo Bellato, the opponent of Jimmy
Bellato,
Crute?
yeah, Bellato. So Bellato, I mean, he came back, and I think part of the reason he was able to come back is people underestimate how much energy you use trying to finish a fight, especially on the ground. Because
Fair enough.
at the end of it, at the end of the fight, I don't know if you agree, but who looked like the pressure fighter? Bellato or Cruz?
I didn't pay attention to that, to be very honest. So I can't
Yeah.
answer that. I
I
mean,
mean, to
both look
me,
pretty tired to me.
okay.
But Bellato was more tired because he did more work in the next 2 rounds.
No, but in terms of like, I think that in the first round, Cruz put it all in, and he deserves a 10-8.
Yeah. And pretty much was done, right? He was pretty much
Yeah,
done after the first round.
exactly. But then after that, you know, Bellato really put it on him, and he landed some really nasty shots of his own. And he started working that body as well. He started working
The
Cruz's
leg.
body. Yeah. Oh, the calf kicks. Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, I think ultimately the draw was fair, but who knows? You know, in the Anshul fight, let's say Anshul wrestles up. Let's say he gets a beating. Let's say he takes a beating for the first round. Who is to say that he doesn't come in round 2 and 3, gets a second win, and you know, maybe whether or not maybe he gets a knockout, maybe it and turns out to be a draw. Who knows? But I think he should have been given that opportunity.
Fair enough. Now, did you think Tafa, his kick was legit? That's all I have to ask. Everything else is immaterial. Because the fight was so short. It was like a few seconds.
You know, like, okay, what do you think about the Tafa brothers?
I think it was fine. It hit his body, right? He was. I think it was a legal kick. I mean, after the benefit of hindsight of so many uh, replays, full disclosure,
Wait, which kick are you talking about? Sorry.
the Tafa kick, right? The fight kick, which basically led the fighter to go down, right? Teixeira kicking Tafa.
Oh yes. What, he complained about that?
Yeah, somebody said, "Oh, it looks doesn't look legit."
I don't know. I thought it was fairly legit. In fact, as soon as he threw the kick, I was like, "This is done." Because for his size, 6'7", heavyweight, moving like I don't know. I felt like he was moving pretty damn well for a guy that size. And then he's throwing, overhand into shots. And then, first of all, you don't really see that at heavyweight. You don't see guys making entries like that, explosive entries like that at heavyweight. So that was exciting to see. And then, oh my God, that elbow from hell. That was one nasty elbow. So yeah, I don't know what the complaints are. That was a perfect stoppage. I know at the end he was protesting the stoppage. No, nothing. It was as clean a win as you could get.
Okay, somebody has asked, DDP versus Khamzat will look. DDP will dominate. DDP is too
I think.
big for Khamzat Chimaev.
You think dominate?
Oh, dude, how big? Come on, yaar, the size difference, yaar, Varun, yaar, tu size difference to dekh. DDP should be a light heavyweight, yaar. वो साला middleweight में लड़ रहा है यार बैठ के.
But he used to fight at welterweight, no? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He was like in KSW, wasn't he both welterweight and middleweight champion? If I'm not wrong. Or EFC one.
Did you see the visible size difference between DDP and Strickland, or DDP and
Oh,
Adesanya?
he's huge. No, he's huge. DDP is huge. Don't
He's
get
like
me
a
wrong.
bhaisa itna bada.
But Khamzat not a small guy, Khamzat
I
not a
know,
small
but
guy.
Khamzat is like the perfect middleweight, right? He's not
Yeah,
light
yeah.
middleweight, light heavyweight material.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, tell me how you think the fight goes. You think domination, as in?
I think DDP would dominate. I genuinely feel.
But but why? Like you think?
Because
don't think
Khamzat can't
Khamzat?
take him down because of the strength issue.
You don't think? I think Khamzat took
See,
down.
this is what will happen, right? Round 1, Khamzat will go all in, try to take him down. You know the Khamzat fight style, right?
Yeah,
First round,
yeah.
he gives it all. Then he's like, "Hey, thak gaya." Fir wo piche hat jata hai. Tell me, he has not done that in every single fight I've seen. That's all he does.
No, I agree with you. No, in the sense, I agree with you that it'll be. I think DDP will still win. I do think DDP would beat Khamzat. But I don't know if it'll be domination. I do think it'll be like the Usman fight where he basically goes balls to the walls round 1 and 2, and then like you said, he just slows down, slows down, slows down. I've seen, like DDP said it himself. He's seen Kamzat's tire in 3 rounds, but we know that DDP can put on a high pace, be explosive for 5 rounds, and look good while doing it. So I think that's why he'll win. I think that if Kamzat does take down DDP, people underestimate DDP's grappling skills. You know, he's actually a very good grappler. The guy can grapple and he's explosive. And when Kamzat goes against explosive grapplers like an Usman or Gilbert Burns that can match his pace, that's when he fatigues. And yeah, I think that ultimately he will slow down after 2 or 3 rounds, and he'll get a beating. He'll get a beating. But I don't know about domination. I think Kamzat will find.
DDP's grappling skills, ask Robert Whitaker.
Yeah. Oh my God. Head and arm throw. Like you only see that in women's MMA. You don't really see that in men's MMA. A head and arm throw. But I mean, unfortunately, you have to also ask Robert Whitaker about Kamzat's grappling. Broke his jaw. Broke his jaw clean.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. All right. Other than that, I think there was nothing in this particular. Now I want to talk about the previous one. Yar, did you expect Israel Adesanya to be knocked out in the second round by
No.
Imavov? यार
No.
that was I was मुझे सदमा लग गया यार. I was like in a state of shock. ऐसे कि मैं क्या देख रहा हूँ? How the hell did that happen?
It's that the same feeling was, when you like see last year when Tuporia knocked out Volkanovski,
Yes.
and you're just sort of like, wait, what am I seeing here? Like, is this real? Am I imagining things? Like, what's going on? That's the same feeling I had when I saw Imavov knock out Adesanya. Because I thought if there was going to be any way of winning for Imavov, it'd be like basically like a grappling match, but not to knock him out like that. Not at all.
Dude, do you think Izzy is losing his chin?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think more than his chin, he is older now, and he's lost what brought him this far. If that makes sense.
What do we do with this, like this entire division now? Like
It's
in
honestly, it's
terms
quite an
of
exciting one. Sorry.
like who does DDP go next with?
I think Kamzat's the no-brainer. Kamzat's definitely the next fight. After you beat Robert Whitaker like that, I just cannot justify anyone else getting the title shot over Kamzat Chimaev. And that's the fight everyone wants to see. Let's be honest. Everyone
Nasruddin
wants.
Imavov, not Imavov.
No, because if I'm not wrong, Strickland beat him. No.
Yeah,
So
that's
like
true.
yeah, beating Adesanya is good, but also you have to remember Adesanya is coming off a 2-fight skid, and yeah, he beat Pereira, but he was knocked out in the fight before that. So he's now in his last 4, he's only won once. So yeah, I don't know if Imamov directly qualifies for it, but there's also Kaio in the middleweights. I would like to see Kaio fight against Imavov. That could be like an eliminator, and then the winner of that goes against the winner of DDP versus Kamzat.
Can I tell you? I think watching Magomedov being solved by Michael Venom Page was such a privilege to watch. That was precision. I know MVP got tired in the end. I think in the last 2 minutes of the third round, I think MVP was tired. It was quite obvious his movement, and also Magomedov had kind of started pinning him towards the cage to cut off the angles because see, वो लाल लाइन क्या होती है, वो ब्लैक लाइन होती है ना जो केज के आगे
Yeah,
ब्लैक लाइन होती है, और या उसको क्या बोलते हैं मुझे नहीं मालूम, मैं अपनी जड़ भाषा में समझा रहा हूँ उसको, देहाती भाषा में, but I think MVP prefers to stay inside that place, not beyond that, towards the cage, because MVP needs forward movement and then he needs to cut the angles away. But it took Magomedov too long to figure out how to piece MVP up. But that was such a joy to watch that fight. It was amazing. It was not as action packed because people don't understand MVP style is like that, right? He's a precision striker.
Yeah, it really frustrates me when people call MVP boring. I don't know why. Like, it really bothers me because I just don't think they
It,
understand what he's doing.
yeah, it was so brilliant.
Which I get, but it's like, come on, man. This guy, there's a method to the madness. It's not just some guy bouncing around like hopscotch, and you know, he knows what he's waiting for the guy to come in and bang. You know, he just
You know
needs a
what would be
few.
a boring fight? MVP versus Wonder Boy, because both are same.
Yeah,
Nobody
but
will
just
take up.
hopping back and forth.
They'll just hopping. Nobody's hitting. That would be a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. In theory, that sounds like a fun fight, and it is one that like I've been like, oh, maybe I want to watch that. But yeah, no, when you actually think about it, it is probably going to be like that. Just no one really wanting to push the
Yep.
action.
You know how it will be. You remember the Woodley versus Wonder Boy first fight or
First fight or the
second fight?
second fight? Yeah, second fight. First fight was good.
Second
First fight
fight.
was good. Yeah, yeah,
Second fight was
exactly.
nothing was happening. Both were this. Nobody was taking nobody was taking the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So I
was
think
so
it'll be the
boring.
same. But you know what? Like at this stage, since because now MVP, he fought this at middleweight. I know he says that he wants to still go back to welterweight and fight. Um, let's be real. I don't see him fighting for a title in either
Yeah,
welterweight or middleweight. And the same goes for Adesanya. To be honest, I don't see Adesanya going back for the title. I just don't. I don't see him going back. And like I said, what got him to the dance in terms of his elusiveness, his speed, his eyes. Honestly, like people underestimate how good his eyes are. I think with age, he's lost that. He's obviously still a world class fighter, but he's just not at the championship level anymore. Why not just put the two together? I don't know how it would turn out in a 3 round fight. 3 round Izzy is a different fighter than
three
5 round
round is
Izzy.
fine, but yeah, it will be
Yeah,
fun.
because 3 round Izzy is different than 5 round Izzy. 3 round Izzy likes to fight.
Yeah. So 3-1-1. I don't want to talk about the main event because that was not the main fight that was planned. I mean, it was too one-sided. You remember we met in Delhi and we had this like, why are we even having this main event? Like Zabardasti ka main event. But man, Mirab Dvalishvili, can we just sit and applaud the man? Whew, what a fighter! What a fighter! Mirab, man, I did not
Outstanding.
think Nurmagomedov would have been beaten. I mean, it was a tough fight. I accept that, but the way Marab handled him, that was such like, ah, it was a strategic privilege to watch. Like the way they strategize. Okay, Marab, you're gonna do this. You're gonna do this. After round two, when Umar just started getting tired,
Yeah,
Marab just figured him out. Figured him out after round two.
that's it. Like he stuck to the game plan all 5 rounds. He was just like, you know what? I know he trusts so much in his gas tank, and rightly so. I mean, he's got 6 lungs, not even 3 lungs, like people say. Like he's got like 6 lungs, because to shoot that many takedowns is ridiculous. And it's not just that he's shooting takedowns; he's very active with the shots. People are always like, oh, he shoots a lot, but he doesn't get the takedown. Yeah, but look at what he does with the takedown. Let's say he fails, he'll come like off the break. Let's say he makes the connection off the break. He will land one or two shots, and like let's say he shoots 10 times in the round, okay, and each time the shot gets stuck, he's hitting one or two shots off the break. Now that's 20 strikes he's just landed like that, and not to mention how tiring it is just defending a takedown. Um, then on top of that, now the guy's worried about you coming with strikes. He's worried about the threat of the takedown. It's just such a difficult puzzle to solve. He's highly underrated. Mirab is obviously until this fight, he's highly underrated. But one thing that I think people don't give enough. One thing that I think is that people don't give enough credit to Nurmagomedov either. He showed that he belongs in the
Yeah,
title picture. You know,
absolutely. He definitely showed that. Um, So the one thing you told me, which you were right, was Ridder versus Holland, and better watch out for Ridder. You were right. And the one thing I got right was the prediction of when the Prohashka versus Hill fight will finish. Third round TKO.
on point.
On point. Third round TKO. And that's how it finished. But somebody has asked this question about Poatan versus Ankalaev. So obviously that is 3-1, 3-1-3, I think. When is 3-1-3 scheduled? 3-1-3 is scheduled March 9th.
Yeah.
So what do you make of it?
Okay, so this is something that everyone's wanted to see for a while, right? Um, See, the thing is, everyone thinks like, oh, Ankalaev is this like because he's from that part of the world, they just assume that he's some wrestling god. But he actually doesn't shoot very much. He doesn't really shoot very
Hmm.
much or use his grappling very much. He prefers the box. So if you ask me, I actually think while he is the while he does deserve to be there, I do think that he should be fighting for the title. As time's gone on, I've started to actually favor Pereira more. Earlier, I was actually like, Uncle Ive's gonna ragdoll him, but I've actually started favoring Pereira more for two reasons. One, we've seen Uncle Ive's leg get chopped up, like beat up bad, although it was inside
Yeah.
leg kicks rather than outside. Uh, when he fought Blachowicz. Two, man, if he thinks he's going to stand with Pereira, or if anyone thinks they're just going to stand with Pereira, ask Sean Strickland what happens. So
So
yeah,
my question is, if Pereira wins this against Ankalaev, who should he fight next? Prohashka or Blachowicz?
is Blachowicz even fight? I didn't even know Blachowicz is fighting anymore. When was his
Dude,
last
but
fight?
he's such a good fighter. Like he's always in and around the sport.
But how old is he now? He's quite old.
40
He's not.
plus.
He's not young.
40 plus.
He must
40
be like
plus.
what 42, 43 now.
Yeah, I think so.
And you know what? Like his gas tank has failed him in recent. Like I do have to also keep in mind that he has taken short notice fight. I think the Ankalaev fight, for example, was a short notice
Hmm.
fight. But yeah, it's failed him, and if he's going to beat Pereira, although I do remember their fight was very, very close. He's going to have to rely on his wrestling, and his wrestling is very explosive. He's not like your chain wrestling type of wrestler. He's going to blast through you. That's very tiring, and he's much more explosive. I don't know with his age, um, if he I don't know with his age if he can keep up that pace or if he can do that and hold Pereira down for that long. Because with Pereira, all it takes is one. It literally just takes one mistake and he will put you out. So I don't know. I would I would like to see that fight again because the first one was close, but yeah, it just sucks. I don't think I don't think either of them, to be honest. Because Prohaska, we know how that fight goes.
Yeah, but I had this question. Where do you think the welterweight division is going? People keep talking about the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
Um, that, if John doesn't fight the obvious choice, Tom Aspinall,
yeah.
really the heavyweight division is the most worrying division. And I kind of accept that version. But UFC clearly does not like Bilal Muhammad either. They just don't. You know that. They don't book his fights.
He's really growing on me. He's really growing on me.
Like, I don't know what Bilal is supposed to do other than win his fights. Like, what is Bilal supposed to do?
See, they want him to bring in bringing eyeballs, right? Bring in eyeballs and make money for them, which I get. I get that as an organization, but this guy's really good. He's
Yeah.
really, really good. Um, like don't let the
The most
internet fool
improved
you.
fighter, if you ask me, Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, and he gets better every single fight. He looks like the Leon Edwards fight where he won the title was a masterclass. That was honestly so good. And it just sucks. It just sucks that I don't think he'll ever get his flowers. But where the welterweight division goes, I think Shavkat's next in line, right?
Yeah.
Shavkat versus Bilal. Um, but to be honest, I think Ian Gary is, I don't if he
But he
rematches
lost his
Shavkat
last fight, right? Ian Gary.
to Shavkat, but it was a very close fight. It wasn't a one-sided fight. And now let's say Shavkat goes on and beats Bilal. I can totally see them facing each other again. I can totally see it happening again. And who's to say that Ian Gary won't win a 5-rounder? Because I really
Yeah.
think that, again, we always talk about this, and I know we've talked about this before. Ian Gary gets a lot of criticism for his outside life and his personal life, but make no mistake about it, that guy can fight. He's good everywhere.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
yeah, I think that's what's next for the welterweight division. In fact, could you just pull up the rankings
Sure.
while
You
we're
want me
on
to
this?
share it?
Yeah, possible, possible.
I'll put it up. I'll put it up. Here's the UFC ranking. Here you go.
So yeah,
Leon.
Madalena's there as well.
Yeah, Jack Della is decent and Sean Brady is decent. Other than
Yeah,
that, यार कोई है नहीं. कोई नहीं
Buckley,
है. Cody Covington
Buckley,
is done. Kobe Covington is
he's
done.
done. He's done. But
Honestly, he's
Buckley,
pretty much done.
but people are sleeping on Buckley. You know, the guy. Speaking of Colby Covington, he beat Colby Covington up bad, like real bad, and he's obviously got one punch KO power. Buckley does. He's got serious power in his hand. He can put anyone out. But in that fight, what he showed was he can stuff a takedown as well. He can hang with the grapplers. If you're stuffing Colby Covington non-stop, uh, your grappling is legit. Okay, this is one of the best grapplers we've seen in this division, and Buckley didn't seem to have much of a problem against him, and really put a beating on him. So yeah, give him a couple of more fights, maybe a couple of fights in the top 5. Who knows? Maybe this guy suddenly
Buckley versus Brady.
Buckley versus Brady. I don't know. Like, see, Edwards is still around. Who isn't Edwards fighting soon? Edwards is fighting Madalena, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe the I'd imagine the winner of that gets the next title shot. But yeah, probably Brady then. Probably Brady.
Yep.
I don't see why not Brady or the loser of Leon versus Madalena, because
Yeah.
yeah,
The fight night card, I was just looking at 251. I mean, I don't know. Cannonier versus Rodriguez. Okay. I like the Calvin Kattar versus Yusuf Zalal fight more. Other than that, nothing really stood out for me in that card, honestly. Neither. I was just looking at the card. Nothing really stood out for me. But one more question before we wrap up. Uh, 155, 65, 75, 90 makes a better class distribution. So many elite guys between 55 and 70 that another class makes sense. Many big cutters at 70 would benefit at 75. 85 to 90 benefits all the monsters who can't make 205 without watering down to 205. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think we should have 155, 165. If you ask me, I would have it that way. 165, 175, 190. That's way better. And I say this as someone that fights at lightweight. I fought at welterweight myself, and honestly, at some point I might even go to feather. But it's a very strange weight class to be in, because when I was fighting at welterweight, bear in mind that the tournament I was fighting in had same day weigh-ins. But when I was fighting at welterweight, that's what I walk at. I walk around at about 77 to 80 kilos usually. When I went to this tournament and fought at welterweight, I was really small. The guy that I fought was much larger, even though I walk at that weight. But then you have to remember, people are cutting. But then but then for me to go down to lightweight sometimes and fight on the same day is also a big cut, because then I have to now diet down to 72 kilos. So that's about, let's say, 160 pounds. I'd like to say 160-ish pounds.
That's too much of a cut, right?
Yeah, no. Then I'm cutting like 2 kilos or 2.5 kilos, and then having to fight on the same day. Right? It's rough. It's rough. So it's a really weird spread. I do think that, especially because these are your most stacked divisions, the general population of humans does walk around at this weight on average. So at these weight classes on average. So yeah, I really do think they need to sort out the spread of weight classes.
Yeah, I agree. So we've almost reached the 1 hour mark. So before somebody says, yeah, it was last 2 months I've been so much on the road, so I really could not, do this. But I had told you Rohit Sharma was good enough for the white ball format.
Hell yeah. No, that innings was sick. Really good inning.
Well, I get they're struggling in the red ball format. I think Virat and Rohit, they should be allowed to play before we go in the 50 over format. I know Virat failed last match, yesterday's match,
Yeah.
but let them play. They're good enough. Let them play 50 over cricket, because none of these other boys actually have the mental fortitude to build an innings for 50 over format. I think it's good. I think we are peaking at the right time for the Champions Trophy. Before we go, one last question. I know it's cricket related. What are your feelings about the Champions Trophy now? I know we were talking and you were not very positive at that time.
I wasn't, but also you have to remember I was coming off I was like very sad about the Border Gavaskar trophy.
Hey,
I was
what do you
like,
do? I mean, do you think Bumrah would have bowled fourth innings? They would have chased 160. I don't think so. I think Bumrah would have won us the match.
you think he would have won us the match? I think they would have
Absolutely.
still. I think they would have stumbled across the road. I still think they would have won, but it would have just been a smaller margin of defeat. Like it would have been much tougher for them to win. But in terms of the
They would have
Champions
won.
Trophy, uh, honestly, like seeing the last couple of ODIs against England, and this is not like a compromised England, right? This is a more or less the what
Full
who
team.
we're sending. This is more or less the full team, and this is more or less our full team. Obviously, Bumrah side. I am a lot more positive, especially because Shreyas Iyer has looked pretty good. Only thing is, I just hope Rahul picks up. I'm just worried about him at the number 5 position, but he's honestly been pretty solid there. So I don't think there's any weak links that I can see at the moment. So yeah, you know what? I agree with what you were saying on text. I was very pessimistic about our chances, but over time I've become more positive.
No, I think 50 over form. I just think this team is very good in the white ball format. Just look at how, even in our horrifying red ball run, right? Other than
Yeah,
that one day series lost to Sri Lanka, where clearly we went off, but we've not played a lot of 50 over cricket, which is why I
yeah,
was not drawing any conclusions of 50 over. But I'm consistently watching our 20 over side after the World
yeah.
Cup victory. We are just smashing everyone in the 20 over format. We smashed England too. We smashed them 4-1. Before that, we've pretty much smashed everyone. So white ball, I was never really worried about our white ball team. I am genuinely worried about our red ball team, and that's the concern. And red ball cricket, see, if you have a healthy red ball team, then you have a healthy white ball team. That's my concern as far as cricket is concerned. People should why Australia is so good is they eventually become a very good red ball team, and the
Yeah.
skills, right, they come from red ball cricket. They don't come from white ball cricket. The skill comes from test cricket. So as
See,
long as you have a strong test team, you have a strong one day team.
the building of the innings, right? Taking wickets, stuff like that, which are key. See, like we talk about like when you talk about building the innings, that skill is like you get found out in Test cricket very quickly if you don't have that skill, and that translates very well to 50 over cricket. Yes, you have to be more attacking and whatnot, and there are things you can do. For example, Kohli, would he get edge to slips as much as he would he edge to slips as much as he does in ODIs? Probably not. But just that whole concept of building an innings and pacing yourself, that skill and being technically sound is so important.
Yep, I agree. Chalo, let's wrap up. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap things up from an MMA
Yeah,
perspective?
I think we mostly covered everything. I just say to all the guys, we had an Indian fighter on this card. We have another Indian fighter fighting soon in UFC London in March, Pooja Tomar. Please support her. Please support her in whatever way you can, even if it's just sharing stuff about her, just getting her uh, on the media. Because what happens is when you share stuff like on media, then podcasters see her, your news outlets see her, they're more inclined to interview her, and it becomes like a ripple effect when people interview her because she's visible in the public eye. Sponsors are now more inclined to sponsor and give her financial backing. So it's like a feedback loop. So I do hope that even if you're not financially supporting her, you're just sharing her stuff and sending her your best wishes.
Yep, guys. So, as always, we'll be doing these MMA discussions every once in a while. It's just that I got so busy in the last 2 months plus. So after 306, I just couldn't get down to discussing them because I was on the road. I was traveling constantly, so it was kind of hard. Also, this week on Friday, Adit and I will be doing the cricket preview of the Champions Trophy, and we will be discussing the 5 T20s and the 3 ODIs. The third ODI is on Wednesday. So please keep following the Cārvāka podcast. If you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio version, in the description you'll have Varun's Instagram handle and Twitter handle, so to go follow him both on X and on Insta and support Varun whenever he's fighting. You can go, and he keeps posting about his fights all the time. And as you always know, the Cārvāka podcast only runs on membership donations, which are monthly. So if you can join on YouTube or on Patreon, do consider joining it. It's actually because of all of that that I can talk about something as low key as MMA, is
Yeah.
because I know I can't, I could care less about the outrage machine. Um, and to all the people on Twitter who are mad at me for my stand about the whole beer biceps controversy, now I have left that word for you. अब कमेंट्स में मुझे पेल देना पूरी तरह से, ताकि ये कमेंट्स में आते रहे. I'm just kidding. I don't care anyways. Either way, my stand on free speech always remains. But keep supporting Indian MMA, keep supporting mixed martial arts and combat sports. It doesn't matter whether boxing or any other form of combat sport. Some of us love this sport too much to give up on it. And keep watching the Cārvāka podcast. If you want to buy merchandise, you have to go to kushalmehra.com or on Kadak Merch. If you want to buy my book, the link is there in the description. You can buy my book Nastik on Amazon. If you can't do anything, just like this video, subscribe to the Cārvāka podcast YouTube channel. If you want to send one-time donations, UPI ID bhi hai, Interac ID bhi hai description mein. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste, take care, bye bye.